Hi, it's Dwyer, October 5th, 2022. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let's just highlight a few boxing stories before I do. I know there are many sports gamblers like myself who are hoping to make a plus 105 or a plus 110 or a minus 105 or a minus 110 on some sporting event. It could be the Claressa Shields fight. It could be the Chris Eubank fight and stuff like that. Just understand that the real money is outside of the sports book. Right? This is not investment advice, but if you're seeing the price of a gallon of gas jump, if your family's talking about getting firewood to help heat the house this winter, then my what I'm doing is I'm in, look it up, XOP, XOM, those are the symbols. You want to consider an investment in some oil stocks. Right? In inflationary times, you'd be surprised how lucrative investments in the natural resources can be. Right? Don't overlook the real money as you're chasing a minus 110. Okay, let's get to boxing. You know, folks often forget that this is prize fighting. These guys are actually fighting for money. They're trying to support themselves, their families, financially. Right? Now, certain fights have expiration dates. You understand that had Conor Benn lost the match, this Chris Eubank fight wouldn't have been possible because Conor Benn is moving up 1.5 weight classes for the fight. Had he lost, especially if he didn't lose to a Crawford or a Spence, if he lost to some lesser fighter, this huge possible prize wouldn't have been available. Understand, too, the promoters are acutely aware of the fact that Chris Eubank is 33 years old. Right? He's older. So here you have a situation where the fight far exceeds the actual boxers. Right? The reason people are interested in this fight really has to do with their fathers, with the history of the family rivalry. So, while I don't understand the fight because I believe strongly that Eubank is the more experienced, bigger, better fighter, right? Even at 157, I think he's the kind of athlete who can show up at the weigh-in, make weight. He's not relying on major rehydration. This is a guy who's in shape. Right? I just get the feeling that the dollars on the contract or the pounds, right, the prize money was just too big for the promoters and the fighters to overlook. So they have scotch taped this fight together, right? It doesn't mean that the fight's going to be competitive. I've listened to the rhetoric. People are talking about Conor Benn by decision. Folks, Avni Yildirim did not make it to a decision against Chris Eubank. Right? Eubank is a better fighter now than he was as a young man. Right now, he knows sequencing. He's quite advanced. Conor Benn hasn't shown me anything close to what Chris Eubank has shown me in the ring. Right? This is really a cash cow fight for both guys. Let me point out, too, that the fight carries very little risk for Conor Benn, other than a major health risk, right? It carries very little risk because he's getting compensated. And let me point out, too, that if lightning strikes, right, and we've seen this before, if, let's say, something happens Conor lands the perfect punch on Eubank, or Eubank gets cut and can't continue, or Eubank gets hurt and can't continue. If lightning strikes, then understand Conor Benn would be a live commodity at least for one more fight at 160 pounds. Since he's not a natural middleweight, who knows? Maybe even a Charr will have the courage to fight him. Right? For those interpreting that as a shot on Charr, yes, I plead guilty. Right? In any event, I believe the fight is more of a spectacle than an actual boxing match. I see the line has jumped, at least on some sites, to a minus 225 on Chris Eubank. Even at a minus 225, Eubank to me is a bargain. Let me point out too that there's a great interview. It's Radio Raheem interviewing Chris Eubank 4 seconds out. Right? I encourage people to look at that interview because in that interview, Chris Eubank talks about how when he first received the offer, and understand this offer is extremely lucrative, he was offended. Right? He didn't think, oh, this is my lucky day. Oh, easy payday. No, he was offended because he thought, how could this welterweight think he could compete with me? Now, the reason that's important, whether Eubank is right or wrong, is that Eubank is going to enter the ring thinking he's fighting a smaller man who shouldn't even be in the ring with him. Right? If Eubank goes for the stoppage, right, and that's what he did against Avni Yildirim, I'll be surprised if Conor Benn makes it to the 8th round. Right? Just understand, there's a weight gap here. Understand, too, I know everyone's focused on Eubank losing the 3 pounds. And his father is concerned because guess what? That's what fathers do. Right? They're concerned. But understand there's another risk. Conor Benn gaining weight to fight Chris Eubank. Right? Is Conor Benn's performance going to be affected by his weight gain? I think it is. I think Eubank also is a blessed athlete. Right? If they start trading, I believe Eubank is going to be able to take Conor Benn's punches a lot better than Benn is going to take his punches. I'm not expecting this fight to go the distance. I'm expecting the bigger man to win by stoppage. Let's continue. Oh, by the way, the hedge I would have is not what people are talking about, which is Conor Benn by decision. No, Conor Benn's only chance, in my eyes, is if he does catch an undernourished Chris Eubank. Right? If the 3 pounds are an issue, then Conor Benn has a chance at a lucky punch. I believe that's his only chance. My hedge would be Benn by stoppage. Let's talk about some other things. Now, I can tell you, and you can Google this, there are countless actors in Hollywood who have been promised profit participation deals. And then, of course, even movies that you know have made money, right? You're at the movie theater, there's a line, right? You're in the theater, there's a crowd. You're talking to your friends, everyone seems to have seen the movie. You're thinking, well, clearly this movie made money, right? And of course, understand, Hollywood is notorious for telling people not so fast, the movie didn't make money because of our marketing costs, because of all these other deals that we cut with other people who also have participation deals, and the way their participation is measured trumps yours. You're junior to them. right? Movie studios will keep you waiting for years before giving you a profit participation check. Now, hopefully cryptocurrency will change all of this. But understand, the way it's been, having a profit participation deal isn't a guarantee to immediate payment. Well, right now, the Errol Spence, Terence Crawford fight is being held up because apparently Terence Crawford has received a profit participation deal. Right? So Crawford wants audit rights. In other words, he wants transparency, financial transparency. He wants to be able to see the books. He wants to be able to have his people figure out whether a profit's been made. He doesn't want to blindly rely on third parties. Well, you know the rest. This is boxing. Right? The fight hasn't been finalized. You would have thought people would say, yeah, Terence, of course, here are your rights to look at the books. Here's the financial transparency. We promised you a share of the profits. We'll give you an opportunity to see if there are profits. You would think that would go hand in hand with giving him profit participation. Folks, that's not how it's working out. Right? This is a sport where when you start to read the fine print, it's illegible. Right? Someone asked me in a comment section of a recent video I did, which sport do I prefer? Baseball or boxing? Right? Let me just say, if I had a son, and if he were an athlete, and if he had a chance to play baseball or to be a boxer, I would certainly tell him, young man, play baseball. Right there, you actually have contracts you can read. There, you actually have guaranteed contracts. There, you have a union, the Major League Baseball Players Association, that can actually give you health care benefits, retirement benefits. Right? In boxing, what you have are situations like this, where even arguably boxing's best fighter pound for pound is having to fight outside the ring for financial transparency of his own fight. Folks, this is ridiculous. Right? Certainly there's nothing quite like a big boxing match. I'm not going to deny that. But let's just say the athletes are treated better in baseball than they are in boxing. Let's close with some commentary on the heavyweight division. Right? Understand, the fighters aren't fooling anyone. It's October 5th, and I doubt, I'm sure you doubt, I'm sure most of the people at the bar doubt, that Tyson Fury is going to fight Anthony Joshua in December. Right, folks? It's not happening. Right? Let me also point out, too, how ridiculous the whole scenario is. Now, I'd love to see the fight. Right? I would have loved to have seen the fight years ago when Joshua actually held the belts. Right? But we all understand that Joshua now has a new trainer, don't we? He's had one fight with Robert Garcia. I'm just telling you, these boxer-trainer relationships take a few fights to take hold. Right? You need to have the trainer's voice in your head during tough moments in the fights. You can just rely off training camp muscle memory. Right? Anthony Joshua is just now figuring out how to bend his knees. I thought a remarkable part of the Usyk fight was the fact that Joshua was willing to give away his height, bend his knees, look the shorter man eye to eye. I thought that was striking, right? Because I'm telling you, a lot of fighters, Vitaly Klitschko, Ali, they would lean back. Right here, you had a brand new strategy where Joshua was bending his legs, trying to go to the body, and was willing to give up his height, was willing to dare Usyk to trade with him up top. So you have Joshua in transition, right? New trainer, one fight under the new trainer. He's coming off a loss, right? The loss involves some stamina issues. If you believe the judges' scorecards, and I don't, I'll be blunt, but if you believe them, Joshua's ahead after 9 rounds. I know people are scratching their heads, right? You were watching the second fight. If you were watching the fight I was watching, you were watching the second fight and you were thinking, Joshua's blowing it. Where's the urgency? He's now the challenger. He has to make his case. Right? Usyk is still moving. Usyk is not hurt. We're 4, 5, 6 rounds into this fight. How does Joshua think he's going to win the fight against the guy with a reputation of having great stamina? That's who Usyk is. The judges saw a different fight, one that had Joshua winning at the end of the 9th round. Then, of course, things fall apart, right? Usyk runs the table, in my opinion, after that 9th round, right? Who knows what the judges saw? I'm not, let me say I'm not a professional judge. I'm just a fight fan. But let's just say I'm not sure if I understand a scenario where a challenger who, in my opinion, wasn't doing much until that 9th round is somehow ahead of the champion, right? Who's still alert, who's still moving, who's still being effective, who's doing what he wants to do, right? He's parked on Joshua's left side, about 10 o'clock from Joshua, right? You're watching the fight and you're thinking, well, Usyk's having his way. Apparently not with the judges. And they're the 3 people who matter the most outside of the boxers at these events. Well, just understand, here is Joshua in transition, has just faded in the last 3 rounds of a fight. You would think Joshua would need to emphasize stamina in his preparation for his next fight, wants to work on sharpening some of the new skills he's learned from Robert Garcia, right? It's at that moment, with, by the way, Usyk saying, yes, I want to fight Tyson Fury, right? It's not like Usyk's avoiding Fury, right? Usyk saying, hey, I want to fight Tyson Fury, but my country was invaded. I've been on the front lines. I just fought Joshua twice. I have a family. It's almost Christmas time. I'm going to spend some time with my family. Let's have this fight a few months from now. That wasn't good enough for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury decided now was the time for him to fight Anthony Joshua. Right, folks? I'm just telling you from this seat, that's a dodge of Usyk. Understand, Joshua coming off a loss, that's not going to be peak Joshua, right? A few months after he just lost a second time to Usyk. I'm surprised that Fury isn't trying to fight Joseph Parker, who just got knocked out. When did it become fashionable for heavyweight champions to be calling out guys coming off losses? Right? What about the guys who won the fight? What's wrong with that? Well, of course, now, according to reports, and who knows if the reports are true, right? Who knows if anyone is actually serious about what they're discussing with reporters? This could be part of some media campaign by the Fury people. But now Fury's talking about fighting Manuel Charr. Now, we're fight fans. Let's pause it right here. Let's ask for a pivot, or at least let's alert other fans to another person who should be in the conversation. Now, from this seat, the person, the heavyweight, first of all, who has given Usyk the most trouble in the ring, right? And this includes Usyk's fights against Michael Hunter and Joe Joyce, right? I do believe an Usyk-Joyce fight now would be tough. Joyce is a different fighter now. But understand, in the ring, the heavyweight who gave Usyk the most trouble, the current heavyweight, is Derek Chisora. Let's just be blunt. Right? Chisora at times in that fight has Usyk up against the ropes. Right? Chisora is more aggressive than Joshua is in either fight. Well, let's get outside of the heavyweight division. The fighter in Usyk's pro career, in my opinion, who gave him the toughest fight, and it's a classic, was Maris Briedis. Right? Briedis, former cruiserweight champion, just lost his belt to Jay Opetaia in a fight in which Briedis, a puncher, breaks Opetaia's jaw in two places. This side of Opetaia's face and that side of Opetaia's face. That's how hard he hits. Well, what I want people to realize is that Manuel Charr, the guy who Fury is targeting as his next opponent, right? Think about that for a moment. Maybe I missed the crowd out there demanding the Fury-Manuel Charr fight. Right? I can name you, just off the top of my head, 5 heavyweights. I believe the public would be more excited seeing Fury fight. But okay, Fury's targeting Manuel Charr. I need for people to realize that, believe it or not, Maris Briedis, the cruiserweight, fought Manuel Charr at heavyweight and destroyed him. Destroyed him. Now, boxing is rock, paper, scissors. Understand, cruiserweight speed and agility. Right? Cruisers who can move, outmaneuver these big guys at heavyweight. And let's be clear here. Fury, Wilder, Joyce, they're all over 6'5". Right, folks? It's a big man, heavy division. Right? Big man, heavy division. These smaller guys might not look that athletic when you see them against each other. But as we've seen with Usyk in the heavyweight division, he's much more athletic than Anthony Joshua, who is one of the best athletes in the division. Right? I'm just telling you that the Briedis-Charr fight ended with Briedis winning by stoppage. His power carries to the heavyweight division. Tyson Fury, very big by historical standards, right? Dropped by Steve Cunningham, right? Dropped by Steve Cunningham. Had to bully Cunningham after that, right? Had to come up to him and try to lean on him with forearms, body weight, things like that. You have Usyk. Again, his toughest opponent to date, as I see it, is Maris Briedis. They were both unbeaten going into that fight. Right? Usyk is more agile than Tyson Fury. If Tyson Fury is looking for a dangerous opponent because he can't wait until next year, who knows why he can't? Hasn't the brother made enough money? But suddenly he can't wait until next year to fight Usyk, who holds multiple belts. He wants to fight now. He wants a tough opponent. If you're looking for guys coming off a loss, which seems to be what he wants to do, Why not Maris Breedis? Why not fight against a guy who Usyk's already beaten, but who gave Usyk his toughest match? And why the rush? Right? It's October 5th. Why the rush to have someone be ready for the promotional tour and have a training camp all set out for a fight in early December? Right now, understand, I'm a huge Tyson Fury fan. I believe he's a historical heavyweight. He is certainly the best heavyweight I have seen over the last several years. And you've had some heavyweights during that time period with some great records, some very high knockout percentages. Right? Tyson Fury is historical. Right? Much better legs than a Joe Louis. Right? Extremely high skill level, ambidextrous. Knows how to fight deep in the pocket, knows how to fight far away from the pocket. Great heavyweight. But sometimes great heavyweights make mistakes. Fight fans want to see Tyson Fury against Alexander Usyk. Usyk just beat Joshua twice. Right? We don't want to see Fury against Chisora a third time. I thought Fury won the first two fights. Even if Chisora won the third fight, he'd still be down 2-1 in that series. Right, let me say too, we'd love to see Fury against Anthony Joshua. We all understand that Joshua's in transition. Right, would you believe a Fury-Joshua outcome? Let's say Fury wins that fight if Joshua's not at 100%. Right, so I do hope there's a pivot here. If Fury is going to dodge Usyk right here, right, understand, Hughie Fury backed out of his fight against Michael Hunter, who was training for a fight. Think about that. He's available. Of course, Hunter, like Steve Cunningham, like Maris Breedis, like Usyk, is one of these smaller, more agile, hard to find fighters. Right? Fight him. How about Zhang Zhili? Folks, while Joshua's a blessed puncher, I don't think he hits harder than Zhang, and Zhang's a southpaw who wouldn't line up perfectly with Fury's jab. If Fury goes southpaw against Zhang, isn't that a risk, given that Zhang doesn't provide an opponent with that much of a margin of error? How about Filip Ergovic? He's coming off a lackluster performance against Zhang. How about fighting him? How about fighting Tony Yoka? Folks, there's a whole part of the heavyweight division that somehow is being ignored at a time when the heavyweight champ, for some reason, is looking for an opponent. Let's keep an eye on this situation. I hope the boxing press roughs up Fury a little bit here, just like it roughed up, let's face it, Lennox Lewis, just like it roughed up Ali. Right? When you're a great fighter, consider it a compliment that the press is holding you to a higher standard. Tyson Fury's recent moves are curious. The press here needs to hold him to a higher standard. Why? Because he's an unbeaten historical heavyweight. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. In closing, I don't expect the Fury-Joshua fight to happen in December. I believe they've been putting on a show here for the fans, getting us excited without having fruitful negotiations. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I look forward to your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.